I am going to try and deliver on the promise of the last episode of the podcast, which was to do a rig rundown. The new kind of, it's not micro by any stretch of the imagination, because it's still fairly sizable. It's got a lot of options on it, but compared to some of my more recent touring setups, it's definitely on the smaller side. And I'm learning to get a lot out of the stereo element of it, despite missing a few things that I was really kind of in love with in terms of the Gig Rig Wetterbox, the Meris Autobit Junior, of course, that's been floating around in my orbit for so long. So I had to lose those two, and the Caveman Audio BP1. Actually, quite a few things got left off the board. The Expression pedal, but let's get into what is there. Before we get cranking, I'm so happy to have actually received the first physical copy of How to Transcribe. It's a new book. It's out now. It's linked below. If you want a physical copy like this, go grab one at Amazon. Signed copies at my site. Of course, the ebook comes with over 180 audio examples to transcribe and a whole video masterclass. It's been a labor of love, as I'm sure many of you who have been following over the past year have been aware of. For those people who pre-ordered back when the earth was still cooling, the big delivery of physical copies for me to sign and send out to you is coming in about 4 or 5 days. So by the end of next week, those should all be out. It's all linked below, but let's get into this pedal board. I've tried this so many different ways. The Pedalboard cam. Right now I'm just using my cell phone, and it's on a cell phone stand, which is sitting on my footstool that I normally have my left leg up on when I'm playing. So that's it. It's a little bit on the, I don't know, the ghetto side, but it shows the board. And I guess we'll do signal chain first. I guess that makes the most sense. And if I open up the riser here, you'll get a look at the, maybe I'll point with my feet a little bit here. I've got socks on, no manky, naked, big, gnarly toes. I have socks on. The mantle, the I guess, controversially priced product of the year, maybe? I don't know. It definitely kicked up a lot of stink when people got bent out of shape because of its cost without ever having used it or sometimes even listened to it. Just said it was outrageous for it to cost that much. Well, here it is. It's on my board. I've been using it now for some weeks. I used it a little bit before when it wasn't on the board, when I was here in the studio, because that was really nice to just have it out on the desk and really sort of learn and get a feel for the EQ and what the gain can do for me. And compared to the Caveman BP1, the sort of Neve 1073 that I was using before, it is nice to have some EQ on the preamp. That has really been, I mentioned this in the last episode, but it's worth repeating here as we're getting into the board, the signal chain. It's the first thing in the pedal board. It has been really nice to have a little bit of EQ, some EQ options. Most recent gigs on the road were in the UK. We played Ronnie Scott's very low ceiling, compact club, quite a tight sound. And actually the setting I had, maybe because I'm in this room and it's obviously not a club, but it's still quite compact, it actually worked really well at Ronnie's. But then we went up to Manchester to play at Band on the Wall. It's a bit more of a boomier kind of rock club. And I did roll some things in, roll some things out, make some adjustments, subtle but really useful, and was very happy to have those options on my preamp. What did I give up in terms of functionality from the Caveman BP1? I gave up the mono effects loop. And what I used to do with that was run my 3 mono pedals here, the MXR Vintage Bass Octave, the Mantic Hulk, and the Iron Ether Ephemeron. I used to run those in the effects loop of the BP1 Compact. So when those pedals were bypassed, it was straight through, and it was kind of preserving my clean signal a little more. I did notice a bump up in clean signal when I went to that, and I have to say I haven't noticed a bump down since I came away from it. So who knows? Maybe it's the settings I've been playing in. Maybe I've been, maybe I've tuned things slightly differently in the board. I don't know. Sometimes it can be purely psychological. That much I know. Could just be that sugar pill thing, the placebo effect. But that's what I'm doing now. That's the functionality I gave up, but I gained an option for the front end of my pedal board preamp, because I'm using a passive bass, and although the natural sound of the bass without any EQ or preamp is unbelievably beautiful to my ear, it is nice when you get in a band situation, especially a sideman situation where it's not your music, not your gig, and you need to make adjustments. You need to fit in and be a part of the machine rather than be reinventing the machine, which is kind of what I do on my own. It's nice to have something like that up front, and it's also a great option for a clean DI before we get into any effects, a clean mono DI. So for recording, I've just been shoving a DI in here, shoving an XLR rather in the DI port, and going straight into my DAW, into Logic, and it sounds amazing. Just the Mantle with nothing else. Amazing for recording. Out of the Mantle, we go into the vintage bass octave. That would be this guy right here. There's some clean signal. And I have that set up really as an octave rather than sort of the OC2 sound that you might be used to me hearing, that you might be used to hearing from me. But it's really simple. Take out the clean and crank octave 1. And suddenly you're in this world. Sort of electronic kind of sound. Next in the signal chain is the Mantic Hulk. It is not an octave pedal, it's a subharmonic. There is a reason I have 3 pedals here that could be mistaken to all be octave pedals, but the real octave pedal is the Vintage Bass Deluxe. The Mantic is... Now, those artifacts that you hear, that little... that is not from the Mantic. It is an issue with the Mantic being next to the Ephemeron. I have no idea why. My justification for keeping it on here is that they both sound amazing. I sort of feel like I can't live without them in most settings where I'm being creative. And actually the little artifacts kind of sound cool in big ambient loops. So I sort of play to the brokenness of the setup, if you will, and actually use it as a bonus rather than a handicap. But that it's just a big deep subharmonic. What's that? Angel by Mezzanine, for Angel by Massive Attack from Mezzanine, kind of that kind of vibe. The Ephemeron is an FM synth pedal. And it takes a little bit of getting used to if you've never played it before. It takes some tuning. It's not the most accurate thing in the world, but once you get the sweet spot, and depending whether you want that attack or whether you want it to swell into the note, now, what as I close, let's close. Before I close it, I'll tell you underneath, so we don't have to keep opening and closing the rider. What you see, the rainbow colors over there on the left, is the Walrus Audio Canvas stereo DI / line isolator. That's how I'm getting this stereo signal out. Not that you've heard anything in stereo yet, because we've been playing mono pedals up in the front of the chain. We're about to split to the HX Stomp. But one thing I want to highlight, and something that I think really makes these pedals, like if I have the Mantic on, for instance, I mean, that's one note with the Mantic Hulk on and the golden reverberator. That's a reverb pedal I've got later in the chain, stereo reverb. That's a movie soundtrack waiting to happen, right? Literally two pedals, a reverb and the Mantic Hulk. So all that to say, I really dig pushing lots of this stuff through reverb or through modulation, which we will get to towards the end of the board. Something kind of in the middle, and this is the part where this is the split point, if you will, where things turn into stereo. It's the HX Stomp. It comes in to the HX Stomp from the ephemeron, and now we get to stereo. There's a simple octave up. Then we get into all my harmonizer stuff. And that's all really dry. As soon as we add a little bit of verb. Just the instant vibe. You can get really percussive with that. I also have, I'm not sure how much the colored blocks are going to show up here on the HX Stomp, but I also have the oh, what's going on? What is going on here? Interesting. Okay, so it's preset to an interval, which I did not do. Wow, something got changed there. So the poly sustain should just sustain. I put the interval of a fifth in there. That with that sustain going on, and then being able to change. It's tough trying to hook it all up. I'm also using my left foot to stay out of the way of the camera. Many things not ideal here, but you get the idea of kind of how I'm using the HX Stomp primarily for harmonizer stuff, but also with that poly, it's called poly sustain. It's basically the HX, no, not the HX, the Electro Harmonics freeze pedal in a digital block. Fantastic. I use that all the time, especially when I'm practicing harmony and working through melodies and chord change and stuff. Really nice to have a sustained thing there if you're working on a particular sound. Actually, what was I doing earlier? So working on a dominant chord, B flat dominant, and using a major 7 on a dominant chord. Normally it's a minor 7. We're using E flat minor and D flat minor over B flat 7. For all the harmony nerds out there, have fun with that. I'm not going to dive deep into what that is. It's just kind of how I use that tool. Then we get into the upper deck. We go from the HX Stomp into the mood, and the mood is, well, it's many things. It's like the ambient musician's best friend, kind of, in so many respects. What I generally use it for is as a micro looper, because it's always listening. It's listening to everything I'm playing, and you set the length of how much it listens before it loops around with that center knob, the time knob in the bottom, in the center. So I'm just playing kind of random stuff. And it's grabbed that, and it's already set to a weird setting, so it's processing it. And you could do something a little more consistent. It's still going to process it depending on how you have it, but this was at least a little more consistent from start to finish without any pops or clicks. You can, I believe, if you hold it down, you can overdub and add things to it. Some pops and fizzles and some granular stuff. And then that's the right side of it, the micro loop. But the left channel can be delay, reverb, whole bunch of stuff. Like that's its most washed out setting. There it is, dry, and then you can get into some real weirdness with it, especially when you put that through the reverb. Give it a little space, or maybe a really big reverb. Jumping ahead with another pedal, but it's kind of what I was hearing. So let's get rid of all of that. What I jumped ahead to, we've seen a lot of the golden reverberator. That comes next. That's after the mood. So it's giving me these beautiful, lush reverbs. That really, to me, adds so much space to the sound, right? And obviously what is last in the signal chain is the DI that we looked at under the board. The last in terms of functionality on the board is the looper, which is pretty standard just over here. Maybe we'll do some stuff with that in a second. But the last pedal that actually does something to the sound, that modulates the sound, is the Generation Loss Mark II from Chase Bliss. And it's there because I had a Dark World by Chase Bliss, and it broke, sadly. Also, it was a mono pedal, so wouldn't really work in my stereo setup here, but it had this vibe, and I could not. Everyone said, "Oh, get the Generation Loss Mark II. That'll kind of get the weird sort of degraded tape sound you're looking for." I couldn't figure it out until somebody at Chase Bliss said, put it in the end of this, put it after the reverb. I had everything before the reverb. To me, I want the option to be able to soak everything in reverb. But actually, the reverb hitting the Generation Loss Mark II was the move in terms of getting some of the sounds I wanted. You can also get chorusing and all kinds of modulation with the Generation Loss Mark II. I generally use it just for the tape degradation, just for that thing. actually what all of this is telling me is that I'm really, really out of practice. And I mentioned in the last episode, we're moving house, so it's behind the camera is total chaos, and I've just been carrying boxes and packing boxes, and thankfully remembering to wear gloves. But I did get a paper cut in my middle finger going out to get the mail the other day. That was ridiculous. And I have two gigs actually, Friday, Saturday with Peter Erskine here in LA, that I'm really trying to be in shape for, and also not push this middle finger before it's healed. Bit of a right hand nightmare going on this week in terms of the bass. But that's the rig. That's the rig in its entirety. And I said we have the looper on the end, which is, pretty self-explanatory. It's a ditto stereo. And so many things you can do with that. And one of the things I actually love to do with it is to record silence. You've probably seen me do this before. If you haven't, this is how I create big ambient pads without any kind of noticeable loop in them. So if I just record silence, turn it on for a few seconds. So now we have a loop of silence. Then I'll go in and I'll get the sound I want. Whoops. This was why I was doing it with the left leg, so I didn't kick the camera. Anyway, I'll go in and grab a sound I want. I'll reopen the loop so the light is red. I'm recording again, and then I'll start swelling things in with a huge reverb. So there's no definite start point. At least I'm trying not to have a definite start point to the loop. The only thing I miss on the looper and stuff like that is the ability to fade effectively and smoothly, and to stop. I mean, ideally I would like two loopers on there so I can sample things from one to the other. I've talked about that a little bit on the channel before, where I would set up a loop like that in looper one, and then over in the second one I might just sample a snippet of that. I'd find a nice part that maybe it was a longer loop. I'd find a nice shorter part that I wanted to loop, get that into the second looper, clear out the first looper, and then be able to play stuff into that. So constantly cycling between the two loopers. So I kind of miss that on the smaller board like this. Also on the Ditto X2, you can have a dedicated stop button, which is really useful when you're playing live and you're playing with a drummer. That really, I do miss that. The double tap thing, you really have to have your timing so super happening for the double tap thing to work. So nice to not be able to not have to think about it and just go buff, hit one switch and you know it's stopped. So yeah, there were some moments on the new album. Actually, is another thing that happened this week. If you're not up to speed on that, the new album Quiet Places with Peter Erskine and Nir Felder just dropped this past Monday, dropped yesterday in fact. And thank you for all the support on that and all the kind words and the feedback. That's incredible. There are two singles out on the Yannick Gustala Clips channel on YouTube. That will all be linked below as well. If you're not subscribed to it, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, as well as this one. This is the dedicated podcast channel. And then there'll be some more like bigger videos. Probably going to make a video about transcription this week and post it on the main channel, kind of get into the weeds and do a dedicated video, really sort of, give the 10-minute or 15-minute pitch as to why I think transcription and ear training is so important. So yeah, if you're into any of that stuff, go check out all of the sub channels on my YouTube, in my little YouTube orbit. And if you have questions about this pedal board, if there's something I didn't touch upon, I didn't talk about the volume pedal. That's just right out front. I plug my bass into that, and then that goes into the mantle. So that's probably the only thing we didn't talk about. Case-wise, I'm using the Pelican 1510, which is their quote-unquote carry-on Pelican. So that fits in this. The pedal board itself is by Vertex Effects, Mason Marangella Vertex Effects. Been using their boards for years now. And I migrated downsized to this one from one of their larger platforms, which I was looking over there to the storage. It's already packed, I think, in a box upstairs, so I can't show you that, unfortunately. And with the one important thing to know is that it is a stereo rig, and I do play live with it as a stereo rig. But I don't take 2 amps and 2 cabinets with me, like take all that stuff to listen to it in stereo on the stage. I send left and right to the house, so everyone experiences, in the audience experiences it in stereo. I don't, sadly. I experience an option on the stereo canvas that's a summed signal, so I can sum it to mono just to monitor in the amp. Right now I'm using in-ears, so when I'm recording it's really nice. I get the full picture, and at some point I will have the wherewithal and the need, I guess, and the I don't know, the patience to build an in-ear rig for when I play live, but that's still a ways off, and it's still a consideration of something else I've got to carry around, which would be kind of a drag. So ideally I would have some sort of in-ear setup so I heard really what was going on, my true sound in stereo with all the effects and all the details. That's the ultimate goal. So hopefully in a few more hours' time, I'll be able to get a few more serious gigs with the band or solo or with Daniele or whoever it's going to be with, and really go out and pursue that sort of sonic experience, both for myself performing and for the audience. There is something quite detailed and nuanced when you play some of this stuff stereo in a live room with a big system. You can imagine some of those big soundscape sounds if you're sitting in your seat in front of a huge system and shaking with those huge ambient chords. There's something, to me anyway, to my ear, there's something really cool about that. And it's definitely something I want to pursue and do more of, and it can come from a small rig like this. It is possible. You've heard it right here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I have 8 pedals that make sounds. Actually, not even 7 pedals that make sounds, and then the utility things, the looper, the mantle, the stereo canvas, the volume pedal. It is not cheap by any means. I'm sure people out there are already going like, holy crap, the one pedal alone is $450. It's crazy. The mantle on its own, I think, is $750. Like when you add it all up, like thousands of dollars of pedals on this tiny board. But once you get past that, and if you're in that spot and it is what you do, and these are the sounds you want to make, unfortunately this is the gear you got to have, and you can do it. It could be a lot crazier. I always try, maybe that's me just trying to justify spending the money, but it could always be way crazier than it is. And I'm always erring on the side of, well, if the $400 pedal will do it, I'm not going to bother with the $900 pedal in general, like in certain lanes. And sometimes there's no way around it. You want the quality, you pay the price, and it's totally worth it. And you will see that all the people you love and respect, whose sounds you love and respect, kind of have, I think, a similar philosophy in that sense. Their ear and their sort of nuanced musical sensibility will end up at the right thing for them, and more often than not, it will be a high quality piece of gear. So that is not great for anyone who's a beginner or broke, or it's not good news for everyone. But hopefully that shows you how some of these things, and conceptually, actually, you get an octave pedal and a reverb pedal and still make some of those huge sounds. Just got to know how to route it. Maybe you want to do it in stereo to make it even bigger for your audience. You don't have to spend an absolute fortune doing it. I am in a fortunate position where I can afford some of these things. I've been doing it for 30 years and or more, and I'm at that point where I can afford to get a few things that really make sense for what I do. It is worth the investment for me at the end of the day. So just be aware that it's okay not to have the bread to get it all, and not to have exactly what I have on the board, but you can get it done. For the longest time I used a Boss OC2 and a Hall of Fame 2, I think it was, from TC Electronic, the single stomp. That's not that expensive, a fraction of the price of the Golden Reverberator, I believe. And you can pick up a ton of different octave pedals for not that much money. You could probably get both of those pedals for less than my reverb pedal and make massive sounds doing it. So don't discount some of the cheaper things if you're looking to get into this stuff. Also, don't discount the multi-effects thing as well. The multi-effects thing will give you access to basically every kind of sound there is, and then it's worth investigating what elements of those sounds you like, and potentially, if you have the money and you want a boutique pedal that does kind of one thing, does the reverb, or it does the chorus, or it does the distortion, then you can branch out and buy a single pedal. But it's always nice to have literally thousands of sounds in a unit like the HX Stomp to be able to experiment with and find out exactly which lane you want to go down, rather than just guessing and being like, I'm going to spend $300 on a pedal and oh crap, it's the wrong thing. I mean, it's like, you know, the multi-effects is a good case to be made for it being a learning tool if you're new to the world of effects. Anyway, that was it. That was the rig rundown. I'm sure there are questions. Leave them in the comments below. I'm sure I missed a bunch of things and didn't think to cover them, and you will, I'm sure, let me know and fuel more episodes of the podcast. Again, it's great to be back. This is now the second episode in 2 weeks. That's fantastic for me. Feels really fun to be talking about music, playing music, being in front of the camera, as chaotic as it is about to move house. I'm also excited for the new space. Set it up, make it look good, and make it sound good, more importantly, and bring you more information. Again, all the comments below, doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to try to read them all, and see you guys on the next one.